How did you become an audiophile?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, if you really want to know, I was 7. I grew up on a farm in Nebraska, and like I had an older brother, and he got a BB gun when he was 7, and my dad was like, "Okay, are you going to get a BB gun?" And I said, "Well," and that was like the big gift, right? I was like,
Yeah,
"No,
shoot things.
right, kill vermin." I was like, "Can I get a Walkman?" Because I love music, and every time I saw a speaker, I wanted a speaker. Like Back to the Future was out and Karate Kid and everything, and they all had Walkmans, and I wanted that. And I don't know why I wanted it. I just did. And so that was like my first gateway into hi-fi. I used to record songs off the radio with a little mono recorder, and I put the mono recorder up to the boombox. We had record players. I mean, uh, everybody's talking about it. Come on now, do the locomotion. That was the name.
Yeah.
I had that.
Wow,
record.
really?
Yeah. And I'd have to put a quarter on top of it to keep it there.
All right.
It was.
I love that song. That was one of my first. That was an old song when you were a kid. Wow.
Yeah. And then
Little Eva. And Little Eva, if we're talking about the Little Eva locomotion, she was like 15 or 16, when 100 years ago. Yeah. Well, she was a little kid.
Yeah. And we had like appliance stores because I grew up in a real small town, and somehow they would get a few speakers in here and there and some separate components. And my parents actually had a pretty decent little stereo when I was growing up with an 8-track. And I talked to the guy and he sold me a used realistic receiver, and they had some Kenwoods there, tower speakers, with a passive radiator. I didn't even know what a passive radiator was. I just saw 2 woofers. I'm like, wow. And so I got that. And then I begged my parents for a CD player, and they got me an Emerson CD player from Walmart when Walmart still had separates. And I just sat in my freaking room and listened to Def Leppard, Hysteria, Def Leppard, Pyromania, Poison, In Excess. I just had and back then, what it was like, and we didn't have like record stores. So what you got was what they had at the pharmacy, and it was always Lionel Richie, Huey Lewis and the Newest Four, Michael Jackson, Thriller. I mean, it was like they had 10 of the same tapes, but it was only like 6 different tapes to choose from. And then you'd flip through the CDs at Walmart and try to find something that you wanted, and you only knew like one song. So you were taking a gamble that the rest of the 8 songs were good because you're really only buying it for one song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You usually lost that. You usually lost out on that gamble.
Yeah.
So, I was a movie theater projectionist for a long, long time.
That's what you said. Yeah.
And the first movie theater I worked at, the intermission music was an 8-track tape.
Nice.
And one of the tapes was Santana Abraxas, which you do know that record, probably. Yeah. And then the other tape was a band called the Mark Almond Band.
Yeah.
And so I would switch back because I was there for 16 hours a day, and I would switch every other intermission. I would play the other one, right? Yeah. Until finally the Mark Almond Band tape snagged up and it was unplayable. So then for like the next year, I only played Santana Abraxas. It was so painful. But that's a great record. It was actually, it can go on and on and on, but still.
Yeah. So in all seriousness, like what's your favorite? First of all, I want to thank you for like reviewing stuff that's like attainable for some people. What's your favorite like speaker or amp like in the $500 range?
Well,
anything jump off the page at you?
Well, no, I was just trying to make sure I didn't mess up. No, of course, the Klipsch RP600M.
Yep, I've got some right over there.
By far. For a little more, the Maggie LRS, but
yeah,
that's $650, but then you got to use really expensive stuff with it to make it sound good.
But you said the Denon drove the Maggies pretty well, right? The PMA 600NE?
I don't think I said that.
Oh,
did okay. I? Well, a lot of people tell me I say things all the time that I'm not sure if I actually said.
Well, I don't think anybody actually watches my radios. my my reviews. What's your favorite, like Outlaw Audio? That's pretty good, right?
I like Outlaw a lot, the RR2160 especially.
Yeah. But I mean, were you always, or was that when you were in the projection NIST area?
Yes.
Was that how you got into audiophile or became an audiophile? Or were you always into music?
I was always into music.
Yeah.
But the crossover to being an audiophile and the way we talk about it now didn't happen till, well, I wasn't a projectionist that long. So, it was like the mid 1970s. And I met this recording engineer, Bob Katz, and we became friends. And he was an audiophile, and he had a really high-end system. And when I heard it, it was a pivotal moment in my life, because nothing sounded anything like that before. So it was a change. But I always had, when I bought my first hi-fi when I was 15 or 16 years old, I was into it then, but I wasn't really an audiophile. I was just a kid that wanted to buy a stereo. But
Right.
later when I met Bob Katz and I heard a system, that changed everything.
What do you think an audiophile means? I mean, it's a moving target, right? I've always wondered that.
No, I have a very, very straightforward definition of an audiophile. An audiophile is anyone who can listen to music at times without multitasking. It's not how expensive the gear is or any of those. It has nothing to do with that. People who can listen to music for real, at some of the time at least, are audiophiles. Now, because once you're actually listening, well, then it's a logical progression that you would want to make it sound better. If you're not listening, it was just background, other stuff, give a crap.
Who cares?
But once you're listening, you eventually say, I want to get a better speaker or amplifier or something. And then you get audiophile.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Because the guy or the lady with a $10,000 hi-fi isn't 10 times the audiophile as someone with a $1,000 system. There's not increments to it. Either you are or you're not, and the price of your stuff has nothing to do with it. Nothing.
So like when you have like the LRS, what is that, the difference between that and like a box speaker? I mean, what does that sound like compared to like I don't know, CAF LS50 or something that's coming out of, what's the differences?
Well, the first thing is because it's the smallest magnet. It's 4 feet tall, but 4 feet tall is big.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has a bigger, more closer to life-size sound stage than a box speaker does. It sounds bigger. It has more dimensionality to it. And it's also more transparent, pure, clear, whatever words you want to use, than a box speaker does.
Yeah. So why do you like the Klipsch RP600M so much? What like about that speaker was just like, this is incredible?
It's life. It sounds more alive than other speakers do at that price range, including the LRS. The LRS is maybe a lot of the Magnepan is a lot of things, but it's not particularly alive sounding or dynamically real. Doesn't do that. It does other things, but the RP600M is in its liveness, because the thing that I point out every now and then, when you hear live music in a club or a concert hall, it's coming through horn speakers pretty much all the time. So the sound of live music as we experience it is the sound of horn speakers.
Wow.
I know there are exceptions, but for the most part, when you're at a club or you're at a bar or whatever, you're hearing horn speakers. So that's what live music sounds like to most people.
Yeah. Huh.
And this one, the RP600M, gives you some of that, but it's very clean sounding, and it works really well with very low powered amplifiers. And when I've played the 600M with very high end stuff, it just gets better and better and better and better. And that's one thing that I stress every now and then, that if you basically have a speaker that you like and it's really working for you, don't upgrade your speakers upgrade everything that comes before the speaker. 'Cause
Yeah.
that speaker, I mean, depending on the speaker, is just going to give you more and more and more.
Yeah. Did you spend any time with the ELAC Unify UB 5.2, the second gen?
Yeah, and I liked it a lot. I did.
That speaker blew me away. I mean,
Yeah.
like that was the pivotal point where I'm like, I don't think anything can get better at this price. The sound staging, the neutrality. I played it super loud and there's no fatigue. I was just blown away by that speaker. It looks like garbage, but it sounds great.
But again, that's a speaker that really benefits from being used with much better stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a 500. How much is it? It's a $500 speaker that if you use it with $2,000 worth of electronics in front of it, it will get a lot better.
Yeah, and I noticed
you can
that.
Go with it, you know.
Yeah, I noticed that with the Anthem. So I got a Anthem integrated 225, which is like 50 pounds, and it's like 300 watts in the 4. And when I hooked that up to the UB5, the first gen, it was just like, hello, I'm a new speaker. And it just blew me away. I'm like, okay, I get this electronics thing now. It does make a huge difference.
Yeah, the first generation was more power hungry. I mean, it absolutely needed a lot of power.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second one still does, but not nearly to the same degree.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's awesome. I don't know. I don't have anything else for you unless you want to ask me about what life was like on a farm castrating sheep.